Question 1. Who must attend the daily Scrum? A. The developers and the Scrum Master. B. The developers. C. The entire Scrum team. D. The developers and the product owner. Answer: B. The developers. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers of the Scrum team. Its purpose is to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary, adjusting the upcoming planned work. While the Scrum Master and product owner can attend if they are also working on sprint backlog items or are invited by the developers, their presence is not mandatory because the event is not for them. The key is that if others are present, they do not disrupt the meeting. Remember, the daily Scrum is the developers' meeting to plan their work for the next 24 hours, not a status update for anyone else. Question 2. According to the 2020 Scrum Guide, what is the typical size of a Scrum team? A. 3 to 9 people. B. 10 or fewer people. C. 5 to 11 people. D. Exactly 7 people, plus or minus 2. Answer: B. 10 or fewer people. The Scrum Guide recommends that a Scrum team be small enough to remain nimble and large enough to complete significant work within a sprint, typically 10 or fewer people. This count includes the one product owner, the one Scrum Master, and the developers. Smaller teams communicate better and are more productive, while larger teams require too much coordination and generate complexity. The key clue here is the number, 10 or fewer, which is the specific guidance from the latest Scrum Guide. Keep in mind this is a guideline, not a rigid rule, but it is the official recommendation for optimal team dynamics. Question 3. What is the main activity of the sprint review? A. A demonstration of the increment to stakeholders. B. A formal sign-off on the work completed during the sprint. C. A collaborative session where the Scrum team and stakeholders inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog. D. A retrospective on the team's process during the sprint. Answer: C. A collaborative session where the Scrum team and stakeholders inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog. The sprint review is a crucial working session, not just a demo, where the Scrum team and key stakeholders collaborate on what was done in the sprint. The primary purpose is to inspect the outcome of the sprint, the increment, and determine future adaptations for the product backlog. This event provides valuable feedback that informs what to work on next, ensuring the product continues to evolve in the right direction. Remember, the sprint review is about inspecting the product and adapting the plan, while the sprint retrospective is about inspecting the process. Question 4. When the Scrum Guide says the developers are self-managing, what does this mean? A. They can choose to ignore the product owner's ordering of the product backlog. B. They determine who does what, when, and how within the sprint. C. They can change the sprint length whenever they want. D. They do not need a Scrum Master to facilitate events. Answer: B. They determine who does what, when, and how within the sprint. Self-management for the developers means they have the autonomy to decide how to best accomplish their work to create a done increment. This includes choosing which product backlog items to work on, how to approach the technical implementation, and how they organize themselves to get the work done during a sprint. This empowerment fosters ownership and creativity, as those closest to the work are best positioned to make decisions about it. A helpful way to think about it is that the product owner defines the what, the goal, and the self-managing developers determine the how, the plan. Question 5. The product goal is the long-term objective for the Scrum team. It exists within which artifact? A. The sprint backlog. B. The increment. C. The definition of done. D. The product backlog. Answer: D. The product backlog. The product goal is the commitment for the product backlog, describing a future state of the product that can serve as a target for the Scrum team to plan against. The product backlog is the single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team, and the product goal provides context and a strategic objective for everything within it. All the product backlog items should ideally contribute to achieving this overarching goal. Think of the product goal as the North Star for the product. Every step taken, each sprint, should move the team closer to it. Question 6. Who has the authority to cancel a sprint? A. The Scrum Master. B. The stakeholders. C. The product owner. D. The developers. Answer: C. The product owner. Only the product owner has the authority to cancel a sprint, although they may do so after consulting with the developers and stakeholders. A sprint can be cancelled if the sprint goal becomes obsolete, which might happen due to a sudden shift in market direction or company strategy. This is a rare event because sprints are short and the cost of cancellation is high, as the team must then conduct a new sprint planning. The key takeaway is that this authority rests solely with the product owner to protect the value of the product and the investment in the sprint. Question 7. A developer identifies a major technical impediment that will likely prevent the team from meeting the sprint goal. They are hesitant to bring it up for fear of disappointing stakeholders. Which Scrum value is most needed in this situation? A. Focus. B. Respect. C. Courage. D. Commitment. Answer: C. Courage. The Scrum value of courage empowers team members to do the right thing and work on tough problems, even when it's uncomfortable. Speaking up about a significant impediment, despite potential negative reactions, is a prime example of courage in action. This openness is crucial for transparency, allowing the team to inspect the reality of their situation and adapt their plan accordingly. Without courage, serious issues can remain hidden until it's too late. Always remember that Scrum relies on being brave enough to be transparent about challenges and failures. Question 8. The purpose of the Sprint Retrospective is to A. Inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog. B. Plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. C. Allow stakeholders to provide feedback on the product. D. Re-estimate the remaining work in the product backlog. Answer: B. Plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. The purpose of the Sprint Retrospective is for the Scrum team to inspect itself and create a plan for improvements to be enacted during the next sprint. This event focuses on improving the team's processes, tools, interactions, and definition of done, with the goal of increasing overall quality and effectiveness. It is a dedicated moment for the team to reflect on its own performance and identify actionable changes. To avoid confusion, remember the sprint review looks outward at the product, while the sprint retrospective looks inward at the process. Question 9. Who is responsible for creating the definition of done? A. The Scrum team. B. The product owner and the Scrum Master. C. The organization's quality assurance department. D. The developers. Answer: A. The Scrum team. The definition of done, DoD, is a formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product, and it is created by the entire Scrum team. If the organization has a predefined DoD as a standard, the Scrum team must at a minimum follow it and can add to it to make it more stringent. This shared understanding ensures that when a product backlog item is described as done, everyone knows what that means in terms of quality and completeness. Think of the DoD as the team's shared quality contract for every piece of work they deliver. Question 10. A Scrum team is consistently blocked by an organizational policy that prevents them from deploying their increment. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Tell the developers to find a workaround. B. Accept the impediment and adjust the sprint goal accordingly. C. Work with leaders and stakeholders to help them understand how the policy is impeding the team's agility. D. Cancel the sprint because the team cannot deliver a done increment. Answer: C. Work with leaders and stakeholders to help them understand how the policy is impeding the team's agility. The Scrum Master serves the organization by leading, training, and coaching in its Scrum adoption, which includes helping remove impediments to the Scrum team's progress that are beyond the team's own ability to resolve. In this case, the impediment is an organizational policy, so the Scrum Master's role is to facilitate conversations with the wider organization to address this systemic issue. This act of removing impediments is a core function of the Scrum Master, ensuring the environment is conducive to agile practices. A great Scrum Master acts as a change agent, helping the organization improve its processes to better support its teams. Question 11. Who owns the sprint backlog? A. The product owner. B. The Scrum Master. C. The developers. D. The Scrum team. Answer: C. The developers. The sprint backlog is owned and managed by the developers. It is a plan by and for the developers, consisting of the sprint goal, the product backlog item selected for the sprint, and an actionable plan for delivering the increment. While it's created during sprint planning with input from the product owner, it is the developer's responsibility to update and manage it throughout the sprint as they learn more about the work needed to achieve the sprint goal. A good tip is to associate the artifacts with their primary owners: product backlog for the product owner, and sprint backlog for the developers. Question 12. At the end of a sprint, several selected product backlog items are not done. What should happen to this work? A. It is automatically moved to the next sprint's backlog. B. It is removed from the product backlog as it was not completed in time. C. It is moved back to the product backlog for the product owner to reorder. D. The sprint is extended until the work is finished. Answer: C. It is moved back to the product backlog for the product owner to reorder. If any work does not meet the definition of done by the end of the sprint, it cannot be included in the increment and is not considered complete. This undone work is returned to the product backlog, where the product owner will re-evaluate its priority against other items. It is not automatically carried over to the next sprint, it must be reprioritized and may or may not be selected in the next sprint planning. This reinforces the importance of the definition of done and ensures transparency about what was actually completed. Never extend a sprint, its timebox is fixed to maintain a sustainable pace and regular rhythm. Question 13. Which statement best describes the increment? A. A separate and distinct version of the product released at the end of each sprint. B. The sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of all previous increments. C. A list of all the tasks completed by the developers during the sprint. D. A prototype shown to stakeholders during the sprint review. Answer: B. The sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of all previous increments. The increment is the usable, done work that is produced during a sprint, combined with all the increments from previous sprints. Each increment is additive and must integrate with all prior ones, ensuring that a single, coherent, and valuable product is always growing. This cumulative nature means that at the end of every sprint, there is a new, potentially releasable version of the product. The keyword here is sum, highlighting that the increment builds upon itself. It doesn't just represent the work of the current sprint in isolation. Question 14. What does it mean for a Scrum team to be cross-functional? A. Every member of the team must have all the skills required to create the product. B. The team collectively has all the skills necessary to create a valuable, done increment each sprint. C. The team is comprised of members from different departments within the organization. D. The team can switch between different projects as needed. Answer: B. The team collectively has all the skills necessary to create a valuable, done increment each sprint. A cross-functional team means that the team members, as a whole, possess all the competencies needed to accomplish the work without depending on others not part of the team. This doesn't mean every individual must be a jack of all trades, but rather that the collective skills of the developers cover everything from design and development to testing and integration. This structure eliminates external dependencies and handoffs, which are common sources of delays. Think of a special operations team in the movies. They have a medic, a demolitions expert, and a communications specialist all working together to complete the mission. Question 15. What is the primary purpose of the sprint goal? A. To be a checklist of all the product backlog items selected for the sprint. B. To provide flexibility regarding the exact work needed to achieve it. C. To be a performance metric for the developers. D. To detail the technical implementation plan for the sprint. Answer: B. To provide flexibility regarding the exact work needed to achieve it. The sprint goal is the single objective for the sprint, providing guidance to the developers on why they are building the increment and giving them flexibility regarding the functionality implemented. It is a commitment by the developers that encourages collaboration and focus. While the sprint backlog contains the initial plan of how to achieve the goal, the sprint goal defines the why, allowing the plan to emerge throughout the sprint as more is learned. Think of the sprint goal as the destination for a road trip. Even if you have to take a detour, you still know where you're ultimately trying to go. Question 16. During a sprint, the developers realize they have selected too much work to meet the sprint goal. Who can change the sprint backlog to address this? A. The product owner, who must remove items from the sprint backlog. B. The Scrum Master, who must coach the team to work harder. C. The developers, who can negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog with the product owner. D. The stakeholders, who must approve a reduction in scope. Answer: C. The developers, who can negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog with the product owner. The developers are responsible for the sprint backlog and have the authority to modify it throughout the sprint as more is learned. If they realize the plan is no longer feasible, they are empowered to adjust it. This involves collaborating with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the selected product backlog items, ensuring they can still achieve the sprint goal. The sprint goal itself remains stable, but the work plan to achieve it can be adapted. This highlights the self-managing nature of the developers and the adaptive planning at the heart of Scrum. Question 17. Who is accountable for managing the product backlog? A. The Scrum Master. B. The product owner. C. The developers. D. The Scrum team. Answer: B. The product owner. The product owner is the single person accountable for effective product backlog management, which includes creating and clearly communicating product backlog items and ordering them to best achieve goals. While the product owner can delegate the work of maintaining the backlog to the developers, they remain ultimately accountable. This ensures a single, clear direction for the product and prevents conflicting priorities. Think of the product owner as the CEO of the product, holding the final say on what goes into it and in what order. Question 18. Each of the 3 Scrum artifacts contains a commitment to ensure it provides information that enhances transparency and focus. What is the commitment associated with the increment? A. The sprint goal. B. The product goal. C. The definition of done. D. The sprint backlog. Answer: C. The definition of done. The definition of done is the formal commitment linked to the increment. It is a shared understanding across the Scrum team of all the work that must be completed for an increment to be considered usable and potentially releasable. This commitment creates transparency by providing everyone with a common definition of quality and completeness. The 3 commitments in Scrum are the product goal for the product backlog, the sprint goal for the sprint backlog, and the definition of done for the increment. An easy way to remember this is that, done, is the commitment that guarantees the quality of the final increment. Question 19. How should a product owner work with stakeholders? A. By filtering their requests and protecting the developers from direct contact with them. B. By inviting them to the Sprint Retrospective to give direct feedback to the team. C. By primarily involving them in the sprint review to gather feedback on the increment. D. By allowing them to directly assign tasks to the developers. Answer: C. by primarily involving them in the sprint review to gather feedback on the increment. The product owner is responsible for engaging stakeholders and incorporating their feedback to maximize the value of the product. The sprint review is the key formal event designed for this collaboration, where stakeholders can inspect the increment and provide input that shapes the product backlog. While the product owner communicates with stakeholders throughout the sprint review is the primary opportunity for this crucial feedback loop. A key aspect of the product owner's role is to synthesize all stakeholder needs into a single, ordered product backlog. Question 20. Scrum is founded on empiricism, which asserts that knowledge comes from experience and making decisions based on what is observed. What are the three pillars of this empirical process control? A. Planning, execution, and delivery. B. Courage, focus, and commitment. C. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. D. Product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. Answer: C. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. The three pillars of empiricism, upon which Scrum is built, are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency means the process and work are visible to those performing the work and those receiving it. Inspection involves frequently examining Scrum artifacts and progress toward a goal to detect undesirable variances. Adaptation means adjusting the process or the product when an inspection reveals that one or more aspects deviate outside acceptable limits. All of Scrum's events and artifacts exist to support these three pillars. Just remember the simple loop: see it, transparency; check it, inspection; change it, adaptation. Question 21. What is the Scrum Master's role regarding the daily Scrum? A. To lead the meeting and ask each developer for a status update. B. To ensure the developers have the meeting and that it stays within the 15-minute time box. C. To update the sprint backlog based on the discussion. D. To represent the stakeholders' interests during the meeting. Answer: B. To ensure the developers have the meeting and that it stays within the 15-minute time box. The Scrum Master's role regarding the daily Scrum is one of a facilitator and coach, not a manager. They are responsible for ensuring that the event takes place and that the developers understand its purpose and keep it within the 15-minute time box. The Scrum Master teaches the developers to conduct the daily Scrum effectively on their own, as it is their meeting for planning and coordination. A Scrum Master only facilitates if requested or needed by the team. A simple way to remember this is that the Scrum Master serves the team by making sure the Scrum framework is followed, not by running the events for them. Question 22. In Scrum, all events are time-boxed. What does this mean? A. Each event has a maximum duration, which cannot be exceeded. B. Each event has a fixed duration that must be used completely. C. The Scrum Master sets the time for each event before the sprint begins. D. The events can be extended with permission from the product owner. Answer: A. Each event has a maximum duration, which cannot be exceeded. A time box in Scrum is a maximum allowable duration for an event, which ensures that an appropriate amount of time is spent without allowing for waste. For example, sprint planning is time-boxed to a maximum of 8 hours for a 1-month sprint. While an event can finish earlier if its purpose is achieved, it cannot go beyond its time box, as this helps maintain a regular cadence and focus. The principle behind time boxing is to prevent analysis paralysis and force critical decisions. A handy tip is to view time boxes as upper limits or containers, not exact durations. Question 23. Which of the following is an anti-pattern for a Scrum Master? A. Coaching the developers in self-management and cross-functionality. B. Helping remove impediments to the Scrum team's progress. C. Acting as a secretary for the team by taking notes and scheduling meetings. D. Leading and coaching the organization in its Scrum adoption. Answer: C. Acting as a secretary for the team by taking notes and scheduling meetings. A Scrum Master is a true leader who serves the team, not a team administrator or secretary. Taking notes or scheduling meetings for a self-managing team can create dependency and undermine their autonomy. The Scrum Master's true value lies in coaching, teaching, and removing impediments, empowering the team to handle its own logistics and organization. This anti-pattern, often called a Scrum Secretary, prevents the team from growing into a mature, self-sufficient unit. A helpful tip is to remember the Scrum Master should be a coach, not a crutch. Question 24. When multiple Scrum teams are working on the same product, what should they all share? A. The same sprint backlog and Scrum Master. B. The same sprint length and sprint retrospective. C. The same product owner, product backlog, and definition of done. D. The same developers, who rotate between the teams. Answer: C. The same product owner, product backlog, and definition of done. To ensure a single, integrated product is developed, multiple teams working on it must be aligned. This is achieved by having one product owner who is accountable for maximizing the product's value and managing a single product backlog for all teams. They must also share a common definition of done to ensure that all of their combined work integrates into a single, usable increment. While teams have their own sprint backlogs and retrospectives, the product-level alignment is maintained through these shared elements. Think of it like multiple chefs in a kitchen all working from the same master recipe book, product backlog, to create one cohesive meal. Question 25. What are the key inputs for a sprint planning event? A. The sprint goal, the sprint retrospective action items, and stakeholder feedback. B. The product backlog, the latest product increment, projected capacity of the developers, and past performance. C. The velocity chart, the burndown chart, and the budget. D. The business case, the project charter, and a risk register. Answer: B. The product backlog, the latest product increment, projected capacity of the developers, and past performance. Sprint planning is initiated with several key inputs to formulate a realistic plan. The product owner presents items from the product backlog and proposes how the product could increase its value in the upcoming sprint. The most recent product increment is an input because the team needs to know the current state of the product. Finally, the developers' projected capacity and their past performance help them forecast how much work they can realistically select. These inputs ensure the planning session is grounded in reality, leading to a feasible sprint goal and sprint backlog.